is with me this morning. And Dr. Hunter, you're going to share with us today why you think video games are good for you. An idea that many parents perhaps won't agree with, and perhaps many young people will. Can you share with us perhaps what you think is the most important reason it's good for you, good
Of
for
course.
us?
Thank you for the introduction, Mrs. Click. So first, I'd say off the bat, I'd say that some video games are good for you. It does depend quite a lot on the game. It's like, say, generally speaking, it's good to read books, but, not every book. Some books are boring or terrible or wrong, but by and large, they can be good for you. So I'd say there's three main ways they could potentially help you. So the first one is some games teach particular types of skills which are transferable to things other than the game itself. There's a pretty big social element to a lot of games as well, which helps with development and teamwork and that kind of thing. And also as a sort of artistic medium, similar to books or films, they can help quite a lot too. So I've got some examples, if you wouldn't mind me showing.
Yes, yep, very much.
Okay. So this is a game I quite like that I've won a bunch of times. It's called Opus Magnum. It's a kind of engineering simulator, I guess.
Yep.
The basic idea of the game is you get told to make a certain type of molecule, pretty much, and you have to make a machine that does it. So it's just basically putting pieces together, kind of like Lego, more or less. But you don't just do it; you have to make a machine that does it for you. So you can see here that is the machine, and this here that is instructions. So it's telling the machine to do certain things at certain times. So you have to write all of that and use these pieces to kind of solve that problem. And that sort of teaches skills about understanding problems, breaking them down, find efficient solutions, that kind of thing. That was quite a simple one. Towards the end of the game, you get to a kind of monstrosity like this. Give it a second. So it's quite a complicated set of instructions. So all of this, you start with nothing. The player has to design all of the stuff independently and try stuff, see if stuff doesn't work, run it through, break things, fix it, etc. Personally, I find I do quite a lot of computer programming, and this is very similar. You're trying to design something to solve a certain problem, and it's kind of a more fun context than putting your head into a bunch of code, but it does help you learn those skills. So that's kind of a cognitive development one. There's an article here from Psychology Today talking about basically that kind of thing. So showing that certain video games can cause, say, neurogenesis, which is basically brain development pretty much. As you grow up, your brain develops no matter what, but it can develop more or less or in certain ways based on what you do, which is what we call learning more or less. Also, as I said before,
Can I just get you to zoom in on that a little bit?
Mm-hmm.
What's going on in the gaming at that point that's growing? Like from a non-scientist perspective, I look at that and I understand that the more that a little bit like crosswords, we're using our brains in different ways and different connections are being made. Is that the same broad concept?
That's a fair summary. Think of something like, what's an example? Any kind of physical skill, like tying your shoelaces. There was a time when that was very hard for you. But because you do it over and over again, you learn not just the physical skill, but also like the cognitive way to understand it. Like, I don't know, if the shoelace is tangled up, you know how to deal with that because you've done it before. So those kinds of motor skills, or say tactics in a sport. In basketball, if a guy blocks me, I should do this because that's what I've done before in that similar situation. So some generic problem solving sort of skills. But you can see development in the brain that way, and also in functional tests. You can test people and see that they have improved in general at a greater rate. Obviously, it varies a lot person to person. On that point, actually, so I say a game like the one I just showed you is it's a puzzle game pretty much. There are some games which don't have that effect. This is one which I would honestly not even call a game. It's more of a activity. What you do is you click here, and that's the entire game. You just do that a great deal. That's the whole game. And again, I use the word game in a loose sense. So that.
What are we trying to achieve, though?
An excellent question. Get more points.
So what I'm hearing from you is that the games that are, the fancy word would be cognitively demanding, the games that you've got to use your brain in several different ways, they're the ones that are good for you.
Pretty much, yeah. With some kind of goal, and there's a goal, and it's not trivial. Like you have to do something to get there. There's some kind of system to it,
and it's not just a speed race.
Yeah, I mean, it's speed race, and there's some way to get speed, which is skill testing, that works. But there's a designer I quite like. He said it's the opposite of regular design. If I make something like, I don't know, a lamp, I want the lamp to I press the button and it turns on.
Yep.
It's simple and it works. games are hard on purpose.
Yep.
If you could just press a button and win the game, then who cares? It's not a game. There's got to be difficult. There's got to be some kind of challenge which is doable but not too hard. And from teaching, when you teach a student, you want it to be something that's hard enough to test them, but not so hard they've got no hope. And games are kind of like that. Something they can do, but not just without trying. You've got to kind of build them up. This one here is one I play actually with Mrs. Coots quite a lot. It's World of Warcraft. It's a teamwork game. So at a certain part of the game base, you get in groups of sort of like usually 10 or 20 people and fight big monsters. This one here is one of my favorites. He's a big giant. Basically what happens is you fight him and you hit his legs. And when you hit a leg, basically that leg slows down a little bit. So if you hit one leg and not the other, he turns. And if you hit both legs same, he goes straight. So basically you can steer him as a team. And that matters because you're trying to get him to walk into these little volcanoes things here, basically. So the game is trying to work as a team to balance your damage on the two legs enough you can make him go where you want him to go, which takes a lot of teamwork, which a lot of people are quite bad at. But in a large group of 15 people who you don't know that well, trying to organize that, this is our goal, this is how we're going to communicate on like 2 seconds notice to you three, just you three go over there, not people go over there because then everyone goes. So that's kind of a complicated teamwork task. And that is, teaches as well as the skill itself of running the game. It's also how you can get a bunch of people who often you don't know that well. They're just random internet weirdos. But you know what you're trying to accomplish. You can figure out a strategy between you. You can all agree on it. You can all follow it. That helps quite a lot as well. So those first are both kind of, I'd argue, skills-based. Any questions, sorry?
Just thinking about, so you're in that group with 15 random people. How do you know that you're like, how do you build those skills together as a team to make it work? Like, I presume that not every combination works equally well.
Correct. Well, in the game, there's a system for basically it's called finding a group. So basically you sort of advertise most. You say we need, 2 of these and 5 of these and 6 of these, and people sort of automatically sign up. And generally before you go into a fight, you'll just talk 5 minutes saying, okay, so everyone knows how to fight this boss, right? If not, then you tell them, then you say, right, so what we're going to do is, let's say we'll give you numbers 1 through 15. Yep. So I'm going to say, okay, number 4 and 5 go to the left leg. Number 7 and 8 go to the right leg. That's a pretty simple system. Doesn't require, say, knowing people's names, but does let you organize quickly in a group. Sometimes you
do you tend to have a leader, or is there a nominated leader, or is it organic?
Usually, yeah. Otherwise, if there's 4 leaders trying to say different things, it kind of falls apart.
Yes.
That depends, but that's kind of the point. Like in a real business, say if you go to an office and there's 5 people giving instructions and they say different things, then what do you do? If there's one person saying do that, then cool, we do that.
Yep, got it sorted. So what I see, Dr. Hunter, is some pretty fascinating games, and I could ask lots more questions, but it might make it a bit long for our students. If we went back to the point that you made, there's some great games and some curable games. You made the connection with books, and like there's some absolute trash out here. There's some books that really extend your mind and makes you think about the world in different ways. Just as parents don't send their kids to school expecting that they're just going to read maybe low-grade comics and porn books or Mills and Booms, I think a lot of parents in particular would want to say to you, so what about the bad games? What's going on in terms of students, in particular young people, making good choices about the gaming that they do?
It's a fair question. Especially a lot of parents don't have a lot of knowledge about that kind of thing, which makes it a bit tough. But yeah, so it's kind of a rule of thumb. But generally, if you're playing a game because it's difficult and you want to try and do the thing, but it's hard, that's good. Yep. Sometimes I see people sort of playing games just kind of as like a distraction. It's just sort of something to do. It's just like bouncing a ball or watching a TV show they've seen 10 times before. Yep. It's not development. It's just sort of kind of killing time. And there's certainly a time and place for that. But if you spend all your time just doing anything you already know how to do, or doing anything that's just sort of viscerally exciting, just, bright lights, people fall over, points go up, that's not quite the same thing. It's difficult to judge that game to game, but yeah, that's sort of the key element, I would say.
Yeah.
I do have one other point, by the way. Mm-hmm. So I said, take an example of books. So books don't teach you like technical skills. Well, some do, I suppose, but novels don't teach you like technical skills, but they teach you sort of ideas and perspectives and theories and that kind of thing, help you engage with the world, which is obviously very important. See other worldviews and perspectives and situations and that kind of thing. Obviously, books and movies are great for that, but I think games can be too. Some games aren't really sort of technically challenging. They still give you that sort of feel. This is another one I quite like. It's called This War of Mine. Basically, it's set in a city that's been under siege for like a year, and you're not soldiers, you're just random civilians basically trying to survive. And I find one advantage these sort of games have is, compared to a movie or a book puts a lot of work into sort of trying to make you like sympathize with the characters.
Yeah.
To make you want Iron Man to win, right? Because he's a good guy. Because they showed you he's a good guy, and the bad he's terrible, and so on. Yeah. In the games, that's really easy to do because you are the character. You play as them. So when, say they get surprised, you get surprised because, oh, there was a monster or whatever. This one in particular, so essentially, you spend the day sort of hanging around in your incredibly destroyed house trying to not starve or die of sickness or freeze to death. And at night, you go out and sort of scavenge to the city trying to find resources, so wood to burn and medicine to keep you alive and food to eat. And mostly that's sort of sneaking around, trying to not get seen by soldiers, that kind of thing, and it's fairly combative. But when I first played this game, so that's what most of the game is. You're sneaking around trying to get supplies to stay alive, which is, good, right? You're the good guys. There's one where you go to a house. It's just a house that hasn't been damaged at all, and there's an old couple there who are totally defenseless, and I've got tons of food and medicine, but they just say, oh, please don't take our stuff. My husband has pneumonia. Take the medicine, he's going to die. And you're like, well, it's not a fight. I can't just, sneak around and steal stuff. Well, I can, but should I? Should I take like some, but not all of it?
Yep.
Like food and not the medicine, or but also you've got your people in your house you've got to worry about too. So, and the game doesn't say, correct 10 points, you did the right thing. It just, you do it or you don't. It's kind of on you. But that's sort of like moral choice. I think you feel a lot more because it's not just, oh, a person in the book, he did this thing. It's you do the thing or you don't, which is a lot more engaging sometimes because you're in that perspective. It works well for horror as well because you feel kind of at risk and at danger in the game because things happening. You're sort of key to try and stay alive. So that can be quite a useful storytelling device as well, which helps expand people's mindsets and things.
It's fascinating. I feel like I could ask you lots more questions about this. I think Miss Ruiz is also a fan, isn't she?
Very much so, yes.
Yeah. And something we're thinking about looking at for year 11 in 2022 is an English course that's got some gaming elements in it and looking at games as text.
She likes Mass Effect a lot, which is a good game.
Yeah. Awesome.
I have a model of one of the characters somewhere, but it's not in this room, unfortunately.
Thank you very much, Dr. Hunter. We'll stop that there and then come back for our new topic when we've swapped roles.
Thank you.